Hey everyone, today we are gonna turn back time and remember my first 100 days in programming. So grab your tea and let's get into it. Okay, it was the last day of the spring and I started thinking about what I could do to not waste the summer. Right before this, I had gone through a really difficult period in my life. I was completely burned out and had lost all my plans and motivation. A month before, I just bought my first gaming laptop. When I got it, I told myself, you have got to try programming. But then I successfully installed Dota 2 and completely lost myself in that damn fucking game. Even now, when I compare the time I've spent programming with the hours on my Steam account, I can see I wasted a ton of time there. Then one day I woke up and said to myself, today I need to make the first step. So I had a friend who worked in IT and I asked him where I should start. He gave me some really general tips like not to waste time on patterns, architecture or algorithms. But honestly, I still didn't understand where to begin. So I started researching and got hit with a tons of ads from different IT schools. They all offer special courses on how to become a developer in just 4 or 5 months, with a price that was completely unreal for me in that time. Maybe if I had enough money, I would have taken one of those courses. In my opinion, there are two ways to learn a new skill, not just programming, but anything. The first is pay-to-win path, just like in a game where you buy a better armor or weapons to grind faster. In real life, that means using mentors, schools or courses. The second way is a harsh way, where you lose motivation every single day. You waste half of your time just making a roadmap, finding information and creating a lesson plan. You also waste a ton of time trying to understand a difficult topic, only to realize later that you'll probably never use 90% of it. And of course, being the Sigma boy, I choose the second way, the solo grind. I really like to challenge myself at different stages. I knew that motivation isn't enough to reach a big goal, and to make sure I didn't lose it, I created a 100-day programming challenge for myself. I set just one simple rule. Every single day I had to spend at least 1 hour learning something in this field. It didn't matter what it was. It could be a simple video, a chapter from a book, looking up a related issue, writing some code, debugging, or just reading someone else's code. The goal wasn't to be perfect. The goal was to make a small step, even if it was the wrong step, but every single day. Okay, now we are at that point where I started thinking which programming language do I choose. I had a general understanding of what HTML and CSS were, but I quickly realized that these two alone aren't enough to become a real engineer. So I started watching a ton of videos about programming languages. I think you probably know a lot of those programming entertainment channels where you spend hours watching because the videos are really interesting. But then you realize they are just for fun, not for real development. So after about a week of that, I decided to just find a list of the most popular programming languages and pick one of them. It was Python. And even now I still use it as my main language. But I can tell you that Python isn't as simple as every blogger says. Yes, the syntax is straightforward, of course, but the core concepts like data structures, data types, memory management, asynchronous functions, OOP, and so much more are just as complex to understand as they are in other languages. And I had a really bad skill, the skill of knowing how to learn. Yes, that is a very important skill, being able to create a plan and follow it and so on. But you know what? You'll never have a perfect plan or a perfect understanding of where to start, if it's a completely new area for you. At that point, you start thinking, I am so fucking stupid, but that's not the truth. It just means you are in the process. So instead of starting with the basic, like syntax, data structures, loops, functions, I started with trying to create a Telegram bot. It wasn't that I did this all alone. I just watched a video on how to create a weather bot and try to follow along and understand it. But it felt completely unreal. Without knowing the core concept, it all seemed like pure magic. Still, the bot was working, but that was because I was just copying and pasting without errors. So I struggled at that point for a couple of weeks just doing this copy and paste routine. Yes, it probably gave me a small general understanding of something, but it wasn't about engineering. Nevertheless, I was really happy because the bot was working and I felt so proud of myself. Around that same time, I came across the Udemy platform, and the prices looked like something I could actually afford. I found a course called 100 Days of Code, the completely Python Pro Bootcamp by Dr. Angela Yu. And without a lot of thinking, I bought it because it fit my challenge perfectly. Moreover, it was, and probably still is, the most popular course on the Udemy platform. And looking back now, I can say it was a very smart decision. As you can see, this course started with all the basics that I had skipped before. We started with the syntax, data types, data structures, loops, and all these core concepts you need to know to build a program. Now, having tried more than 3 languages, I can confidently say that these core concepts are the same in every language. I don't mean that the syntax is the same, but the fundamental ideas are. Once you truly understand these basics, the next language you try, and trust me, you will be much simpler to learn. You already know that every language has this underlying structure. And I haven't said anything about what I choose, backend or frontend. To be honest, at that time, I didn't even know what frontend and backend were. To me, it was all just the same thing, programming. I know that to become a really good engineer, you need to know a bit of both. So I continued to practice HTML and CSS, while also becoming much better in Python core concepts. But like I said before, I didn't have the skill of knowing how to learn. And sometimes that was a really big problem. This was especially true when the information in the course wasn't enough to clarify a topic or a piece of code for me. I sometimes did some really stupid things, like jumping from topic to topic, and one day I again tried to create a Telegram bot, but in this time by my own. And at that moment I knew what functions were, but since all bots use an asynchronous approach, and I started to learn about coroutines, I/O and CPU-bound operations and asynchronous programming, and it was a completely stupid decision because I lost so much time trying to understand it, but actually I wasn't ready for this. And after some time I realized I need to cut this off and return to the course. You know, in this video I'm not going to talk about each and every day. So this choice alone cost me 2 weeks or maybe even more. You need to understand that when you're learning something big like programming, you must be motivated and disciplined enough to get through this moment. It's not a question of if you will make mistake, but when. So be ready for this, man. I was consuming a ton of content related to programming, and I couldn't help but ask myself if this was really for me. Even since school, everyone had told me I was completely hopeless at the math and anything technical. But you know what? This is exactly what I like to do. It's a great example of how the crowd and society try to tell you what you are good at and what you are hopeless at. Returning to the videos, I found a lot of really good developers who said that to become a good engineer, you have to do your own project, because tutorials are only about 10% of the learning. On the top of that, in one 100-day course, we approached frameworks and libraries, and the first one was Selenium. I just understood the basic and decided to create my own project using it. And yeah, it wasn't like just copying and pasting and making small updates like I did in the course. This is the point where the real studying starts. I had to understand what isolated environment are, how to install and manage external libraries, how to create and push to Git, and in general how to use it to manage versions. It was a lot more, and I was excited. I also asked my friend to review my code whenever he had a time. That was a really hard but productive period of studying. You know, if there's something you can screw up 100 times or 100, that's me. So I will keep this part brief, but in reality, I had huge issues understanding Git and just building the program itself. It was pretty significant for me at that time, with a lot of functionality, and I didn't even tell you what the program was about. It was a big parse that would register accounts on different job markets, find related offers and part them. After that, it would store the data in the database, run some statistics and present it on the front end. It was actually my friend's suggestion to use database and learn about ORMs and basics database software. If you do a short recap, you can see that this project touches all the basic stuff you will use as engineer in the future. Version control, basic architecture, package managers, external libraries, ORMs, database, and so much more. Okay, and after that big project, I also came across a web framework in Python called Flask. After understanding the basics, I dive into creating simple websites with an authorization system and more. And my 100-day challenge ended when I got my first order. If this video gets enough like and you guys support me, I will create the next part where I will tell about that project and how it feels to get your very first order after only 100 days of programming. Thanks for attention. Bye.